Eirig Jenkins ydw i. Rydyn ni yma yn Llechwedd Erisa ar ffarm Dyrnod Agored gyda menter y busnes. Rhan o ffarm Pentrefeli i ni'n ffarmo fan hyn. I ni yma i arddangos lloi tu allan trwy cyswllt ffermio.
There's a lot of interest now in outwintering systems. The price of actually keeping cows in sheds and dealing with all the muck and slurry, bedding costs, animal health issues. A lot of people are looking at ways of doing things slightly cheaper but maintaining all the animal performance at the same time. Some people are outwintering on wood chip pads, others are looking at kale crops, brassicas. What's going on here is we're looking at outwintering heifers on deferred grazing. So grass that we've shut up in August time and is now being grazed over the winter. The key target for anybody who's outwintering heifers is to think about how they go to the bull, what condition they're in, can they get them in calf. You want to have a system that doesn't affect your calving index, your calving percentages significantly. So it's not a system for everybody, and certainly if you've got cows out in winter, at some point they're going to make a mess, and you've got to have ground that's going to have some capacity to deal with that. On the farm here we've got a range of land, some of it's dry banks, some of it's a bit wetter. There's got to be flexibility in the system so that cows don't make too much of a mess. There can be cross-compliance issues, you've got to pick your ground carefully, but poaching per se is not a cross-compliance issue. The cross-compliance issue comes when soil starts to run off into ditches, rivers or onto the road. So if you've got a system that you can cope with a mild bit of poaching, it is not a cross-compliance issue. The targets here on the farm, we want ideally for heifers going to AI at about 14-15 months, calving down 23-24 months. There's lots of research showing the costs associated with later calving. If you're into 26, 27, 28 months, the big losses in milk, first lactation, second lactation. In order to achieve a decent size at AI, we're looking at weights somewhere about 55 to 60% of maturity in order to get a good conception percentage. To achieve that here, we've got 9-month-old heifers have gone out onto this grass. We're looking to grow them somewhere around about ½ a kilo a day in terms of live weight gain. So that's his animal targets here. In an ideal system, I'd like to see these heifers being weighed through the 6 months at grass so that we know we're on targets. The system that's done here is he doesn't do any weighing. He's a very experienced stockman. He knows by eye what his heifers are doing. It's not something I'd encourage, it's something I'd acknowledge works, but you've got to be good stockman in order to achieve it. What Eirig is doing on this farm is actually doing all his monitoring and measuring, not on his animals, but on his grass. Because this system also has grass targets as well as animal targets, and the targets, in order to drive these cattle at ½ a kilo a day, they need to be taking on 5 or 6 kilos of dry matter per day, with a quality of about 11 megajoules of energy per kilo. Those are his key targets. So we need to get this dry matter intake into his animals, and it needs to be of high quality. He also needs to have enough grass to go round. They're on this system for 180 days. We've got 88 hectares, so we need to be able to budget this grass that lasts the whole season. We don't want to run out of grass in March. The way the system is set up at the minute is that the heifers get a fresh allocation every day. Their demand, if we work on 5.5 kilos dry matter intake, I've got 132 young heifers up there, so every day they need 726 kilograms of dry matter in order to drive this growth rate. Eirig is measuring his grass every day, what they're going into, so he knows exactly the amount of grass that he's turning his heifers into. The plate meter works basically by you drop it to the ground and the grass raises the plate up the rod. The more grass you've got, the higher the plate comes. That's recorded automatically. You go around a field, you do 30 or 40 areas, measure how much grass you've got. And it gives me a figure in kilograms dry matter per hectare. So I know exactly how much grass is going into the paddock, and I can also measure when the cows come out, so I know what my residual, what I've got left. And I say the targets for here are somewhere around 3,000 kilograms of dry matter going in and about 1,500 coming out. This is the tool that helps you sleep at night, because you know exactly what you're doing today, tomorrow, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ahead. So the sums are that a hectare can basically keep those 132 heifers for 2 days. The system here runs, they get fresh allocation every day. So all the paddocks are fenced, ready for them to go in, and at the minute they're about half a hectare each. They'll go in, they'll get moved early morning, they'll graze for a few hours, they'll get their dry matter intake of 5.5 to 6 kilos in those first few hours, and then they should lie down, quiet, ready to be moved the next day. The more they lie down, the less mess they make. The tricking is just balancing up to make sure they've got enough grass to get the intake and it's of enough quality. If this system was based on kale, it doesn't really matter what mess they make because you're going to reseed come the spring. On a grass-based system like this, we can't afford too much damage to the sward because then we get into reseeding costs. This system's got to be sustainable. We can do year after year after year. One of the issues we've got to think about when cows are out is the variability. We've got, I say, 88 hectares here, of varying soil type, sward quality. There's different levels of ryegrass in the swards. Some areas are very wet. It's got to be flexible enough, and the guys have got to be skilled enough to set different sized areas to match the demand of the animals. Always you've got to have a contingency plan. If it turns really wet, or if we get snow or a horrible easterly wind for a couple of weeks, you've got to have some way of making sure your animals get the intake they need and that they don't do too much damage. So flexibility is key to the system. It's not going to suit everybody by any means. There'll be some farms that no, you just can't do it. But here, the ground's suitable. He's got the stockmanship skills to make it work, and he's doing a very good job.
I'm Jim Hopkins, and I'm a vet with Stefan Vets in Lampeter, and we're at Llanfair Dairy today. I'm going to discuss health planning for outwintering with the heifers calves which are here. Our main sort of thing with the health planning is to think about the animal health and welfare. The 5 freedoms as quoted in the welfare guide for the Welsh Assembly. 5 being freedom from hunger and thirst, freedom from discomfort, freedom from pain, injury or disease, freedom to express normal behaviour, and freedom from fear and distress. And we've got to make sure that all these are tied in so that we look after the cattle and they're all happy and we don't end up with sort of poor welfare. Health planning can generally turn people off and you think it's a paperwork exercise. We'd like to look at it as a dynamic document where we're looking to actually improve and do something with the cattle to make them better and more healthy and hopefully grow faster to get them bulling ready to enter the milking herd. The key considerations that we find with the outwintering is clostridial disease, being blackleg and black disease, and the other side of things being parasitic disease with lungworm, gutworm and liver fluke. To summarise, clostridial diseases are very important and it is key to vaccinate the heifers to protect them. Gutworms and lungworms are an issue, but through treatments in October or November they can be sorted out. Liver fluke is by far the largest issue, with the different life stages in the heifers and infection through into the autumn, and treatment must be timed according to the weather and the mud which is around. So planning with forecasts, involve your vet, and each unit is going to be different.
Ie, Andy fe enw fi, fi'n gweithio yn y Fartis Animal Health, a fi yma i drafod y fflwc mewn gwartheg heddi, mae fflwc yn gallu effeithio ar unrhyw anifel sy'n pori. Nawr, ar y farchnad, mae llawer iawn o feddyginiaeth i gael i lladd y fflwc mewn yr anifeiliaid. Dim ond un feddyginiaeth sy'n lladd y dolion, y rhai ifanc a rhai ifanc iawn, a hwnnw yw Fascinex. Dos lawr y ceg ydy Fascinex, y cemeg sy'n gweithio hynny fe yw triclobendazole. Mae triclobendazole yn lladd fflwcs lawr i 2 ddiwrnod oed mewn difyd a pythefnos oed mewn gwartheg. Mae pob feddyginiaeth yn mynd o ran pwysau'r anifel. Y dryma yw y mwy ydych chi'n gyfforddhoi. Y ffordd orau i wneud hyn yw cael gafel yn yr anifel mwyaf sydd gyda chi yn y bwnsyn ydych chi'n mynd i wneud. Pwyso hwnnw, a wedyn setio'r gwn at hwnnw a doso pob anifel sy'n llai o seis i'r pwysau yna. Enghraifft, os oes gyda chi anifel sy'n pwyso 600 kilo, mae hwnna yn mynd i gymryd 60 mil o Fascinex neu Combinex neu beth bynnag wedwch chi. Wedyn chi'n setio'r gwn i'r hwnna a chi'n doso'r anifeiliaid i gyd. Bod nhw'n llach yn llai o seis, mae'n well i roi bach yn ormod yn bach yn llai. Y ffordd orau o wneud hynny yw, unwaith ydych chi wedi setio'r gwn, mae'n rhaid i chi wneud siŵr bod gwn na yn taflu'n gywir beth ydych chi am iddo fe wneud. Mae teclyn bach yma gyda ni ar gyfer ac efe testo'r gwn, wneud siŵr bod y gwn yn wneud y job yn iawn. Y syniad yw bod chi'n dodi un dosad neu 2 dosad mewn i'r tiwben a testo a wneud yn siŵr dyna beth yw'r dos ydych chi'n gael. Unwaith ydych chi'n wneud na bod chi'n hapus bod y gwn yn wneud i waith, chi'n barod i gario ymlaen. Rhan amla, i dosto buwch, y ffordd hwyddo o wneud yw gyda un o'r teclyn hyn. Mae'r bachyn yn cael ei ddefnyddio i rhoi yn ceg y fuwch. Wedyn mae'r drench yn cael ei ddodi lawr tu ôl y dafod a mae'r rhwyddach i'r nifel i llyncu fe. Pan mae gyda chi lot o nifelyd i wneud, dyn ni wedi dechrau ar teclyn hyn. Yr un prinsipl yn gywir a un llaw, ond mae hwn yn cael ei ddefnyddio gyda ar. Mae pwysedd ar yn pwysio'r dros lawr gwddwg y fuwch. Digon rhwydd, mae'r gwn wedi cael ei wneud i gymryd lot o wahanol dosis o fan o maint, a mae cael ei seto beth ych chi am iddo fe wneud. Wedyn, mae gwn da chi'n un llaw, mae bachyn y llaw arall, unwaith mae'r bachyn yn y ceg, chi'n gwasgu'r bwtwm, a mae cwbl yn fynd fewn. Mae'r ar yn cael ei dysglwyddo mas o'r tanc cyffredin yma, a fe wneud llon tanc 60 o nifiliad cyn bod chi'n goffo pwmpo fe eto. A mae y ffordd hwyddo o ddos y gwartheg.